Welcome to a podcast about something where each week we dive deep into whatever it is we find interesting. I am your host, Calvin, and joining me from a deserted island that may or may not be purgatory, but definitely is not, it's Nick Richardson.
What?
Do you even know where you are?
I don't, man. Fucking
And
crashed
no
in a
one
plane.
else ever will.
This is bougie.
We're here today to talk about TV shows, series finales, if they're satisfying, not satisfying, controversial, not controversial, just everything series finale. We each picked a few shows. We don't know how many yet. We picked 5, but we're going to try and keep it under an hour. So if we run long, we might not get to all 5. There may be a part 2 someday down the road if we really feel like revisiting it. But we got a lot of Twitter feedback that we'll get to later in the show. Thank you for all of that.
Thank you, guys.
I think we're ready to jump into it. We're just going to go. So this was your idea. Let you explain how we're going to go through this, I guess.
Okay, so it's pretty basic rules. The show doesn't have to have a set ending, and it can be a show that was canceled but tied up nicely, making the last episode the air de facto ending, or a show that did have an ending. So it could be pretty much anything. I personally try to stick to stuff I actually saw.
Yep, me too.
So with each one of these, we're going to do, was the ending controversial? Was the show good or bad? Did it run too long or too short? Or was it just right? Which I feel like is some of the biggest problems with most of these shows out there today. And how was it satisfying? So first one, go.
Okay, my first one, I'm going to go the opposite direction and was not satisfying.
Hit me.
And it's very recent. My first show is The Big Bang Theory.
Oh, man. You know, okay. I have words for this, but let me hear you out.
So it wasn't controversial at all. I honestly haven't even heard anyone talk about it. It only ended a couple weeks ago. I think my wife and I were the only people actually still watching it that are under like 85 years old.
Damn, did it actually end? I thought it was still going.
Yeah, no, it literally just ended. This was the last season. It ended like the week after Game of Thrones ended. But I think by the time it ended, everybody had pretty much given up on it, including the people involved in the show. The show was at times, I think it was more good than bad, but the last 5 seasons or so were just awful and useless. But I really enjoyed the show early on. It kind of had a new spin on things, and it indulged in the nerdiness of it. Sometimes it made fun of the nerdiness of it, which kind of missed its point, but at the same time it indulged in it. So it was nice to kind of see that. And like I said, it just ran way, way too long.
I tell you, man, I feel like that's the problem for so many shows out there.
Yeah, we're going to talk about some that did the opposite of that in a good way. But this, like 12 seasons is way too much. Like they ran out of stuff in about season 8 and just like, we're just
treading water.
Butter. Yeah. They just couldn't get anywhere.
They got to get off that cash cow. Because, I know that was the most popular show on television. Like, I've never watched.
That's what they say.
Yeah. I mean, fake news. Yeah. I've never watched an episode of it. It's always on in the break room when I walk in there. Yeah. So they must play that all fucking day on TV.
Well, that's how it's the most highly rated show. Like, it's just on in break rooms across the nation. That's it. Hospital waiting rooms and like office break rooms. That's got to be it.
I've always wanted to watch it, but
it's funny if you can catch an episode in the first 5 seasons, and it'll be much funnier. It's not something where you need to like binge it and make sure you see episodes 1 through 50 before you can jump in pretty much any time and get what's going on. 4 nerdy guys, 1 hot girl, we get it.
I just hate the guy. I don't hate him, but I can't stand the guy with the like poofy curly hair. He's in Roseanne.
Leonard?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can't stand him, man.
He is kind of a dick. He was in Entourage too, and he was really a dick in Entourage, but he was playing himself.
He's just kind of annoying, man. I can't stand his voice, and he's weird. He's like almost 50, dating a super young chick. To each his own, but come on, buddy. Who's like way bigger than him. So every time I see it, it makes me laugh. It's like, oh, look at her with her little old man friend.
And I mean, to me, it wasn't, I wouldn't say it was satisfying. Like the way it ended wasn't necessarily satisfying. It was just satisfying that it was finally over. It didn't really, most shows like play up everything for the finale, like really go into it. And like this one just felt useless.
Like they were just trying to crank it out to get it
like
over
it was just
with.
another week of. It felt like it was just another week of the show. It didn't feel like it was anything important. Like, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the end and are wanting to, like, Sheldon wins his Nobel Prize that I guess he's been working to for 12 years, but like they don't, not really. And Leonard and Penny, who's the hot girl, and Leonard's Johnny Galecki, who you don't like, they're pregnant. Okay, great. That's it. Like that's the big stuff that happens.
It sounds pretty underwhelming.
It was very underwhelming, but that kind of sums up what the show was for the last 5 or 6 years, anyways.
That's just too bad. I hate when this stuff happens.
So I wanted to get that one out of the way so we can talk about better things.
Perfect. Because I got something that's polar opposite in every category for the most part. And mine is a super satisfying series finale with Parks and Recreation.
Oh, good one. That was like honorable mention. I didn't want to put that one on my list. I kind of thought you would, so I was like, I'll leave that for something else.
You know me so well. Me and my wife love that show.
Parks and Rec is so good.
Such a great show. We watch it. It's always on in the background at our house. She knows like every line to every episode. But it's just such a great show. And the ending for it, I've never heard anyone bitch about. Like, that was one of the few shows I've never heard anyone say that show left me wanting, because it had the perfect amount of seasons. I think it was like 5 or 6.
I think it was 6, yeah. And a lot of them were short because they were always in
like writer strikes and stuff, wasn't it?
Well, they were always on the bubble of being canceled too, and they were usually a mid-season replacement, which is like, so shows that may or may not get picked up for another season, like they'll slot them to start in January instead of September. And because they know something that starts in September will get canceled before January. So they just hold off on the other show and give them a shorter season and basically put 2 shows in the same slot because they know something will lose its ground. So a lot of seasons were mid-season replacements where they started in January instead of September. And so there was a lot of short seasons. There was a lot of on the bubble of being canceled or not being canceled, but they stuck around, and I'm glad they did.
Super glad they did.
Adding Rob Lowe and Adam Scott was the best thing they could have done too.
So great, man. And they had such a great cast of characters. I loved every single one of them, even more than The Office.
Even Mark Brandanowitz?
Oh, even Mark Brandanowitz. I'm sorry, that was too harsh. I love that show even more than The Office, just because they nailed so much stuff so well. Amy Schumer? Isn't that her name?
Amy Poehler.
Amy Schumer. That doesn't make Amy Poehler, who plays Leslie Knope, is fantastic in the role. Everybody's
awesome.
Great. Nick Swartzen's great. No, it's not Nick Swartzen.
Nick Swartzen not in the show.
Chris
Pratt?
Fucking up. Chris
Nick
Pratt.
Offerman.
He's great. Nick Offerman's great.
There you go.
Aziz Ansari is great.
Aziz Ansari. Tom Haverford is probably one of my favorite characters
of all time,
television.
dude.
Yeah.
He is so funny. Donna Meagle. Love her.
That's great. Treat yourself.
We actually, my wife put on this new show that she's in. It's like Good Girls or something.
Oh yeah, I remember seeing I haven't seen it, but I saw like the commercials for it.
Check it out, man. It's actually really good.
Yeah.
It's very Donna Meagle-esque.
I watched recently, I watched like 4 or 5 episodes. It's called Abby's, with Natalie Morales in it. It was an NBC show. It's the girl, Natalie Morales is Tom's girlfriend.
Lucy?
Like the Hispanic brunette. Yeah, Lucy. And she's in the show Abby's, where she runs like this bar in her backyard. It was, I don't know, it had a rough start. I don't know if it has any staying power, but it was an interesting watch.
I mean, there's a lot of star power in that show. And there's a lot of the cameos and stuff like that. It's just overall, it lasted, perfect amount of seasons. It was a great show. The ending was perfect. I mean, everybody kind of went their own separate ways, but they're still friends. They're still associating. Like, everybody's
still
successful.
Come back for one last project.
Yeah.
Even though Leslie's president or whatever she is.
I think she's like the leader of the National Parks Association or some shit. But the fact
I like
the
storyline with Grizzle coming in too.
The free Wi-Fi,
big internet conglomerate. Yeah. And how they gave him free Wi-Fi because Ben invented Cones of Dunshire.
Exactly. And I mean, that nerdiness is so awesome. And I love how Tom like completely rags on Ben this whole series for being such a nerd. but Ben is 10 times more successful than Tom without even trying.
And yeah, well, and one of my other things is when Ben was in his depression and he made a stop motion video and it's like 2 seconds of video. He's like, I worked for 3 weeks on that.
I'm depressed. I'm not depressed. I mean, they just had
depressed person do this.
That was just such a great cast.
Yeah,
you're right. Adam Scott's probably one of my top 3 favorite people on that show, especially because I'd never seen him in anything since Step Brothers.
He was in Boy Meets World. He was in Hellraiser 4.
Yeah, well, I hadn't watched Hellraiser 4 till this show.
Check out our Patreon for more Hellraiser 4 takes.
And I haven't seen Boy Meets World in a very long time.
He was Griff Hawkins, the bully that took the place of Harley Kiner.
Griff Hawkins. What a badass name. Oh my god.
He wasn't the bully in the same way Harley Kiner was. He was like the cool guy who like snuck you cheat sheets to tests and set up illegal wrestling matches between you and Joey the Rat. Like he was kind of on the periphery, just being sneaky. He wasn't going to beat you up in the bathroom and make you give him his lunch money.
He was a fringe scumbag.
Yeah.
Scumbag, maybe a little harsh.
We're not here to talk about Boy Meets World today. That will come some different time. This is Parks and Rec. Like you said, great finale, very satisfying, perfect amount of time. I agree with all your points.
Boom. Hit me.
Boom. My next one is Seinfeld.
Satisfying or unsatisfying?
I think it's satisfying, and I'll get to that. But it is a controversial ending. At the time, a lot of people didn't like it. They kind of saw it as just this glorified clip show, and it was kind of stupid and pointless that, these people are just in jail. Like, that's their ending. That's it. And, I get those complaints, but I'll get into why they're wrong. The show overall, it's easily one of the best sitcoms of all time. And it was the first modern sitcom that changed what sitcoms can do, in just that it didn't have these overarching stories. Everything was resolved at the end of the episode and they moved on. It had everybody in the episode had their own storyline that somehow came together in the end, but they had nothing to do with each other for the most part. So it had these 4 characters who were just doing things independently of each other, but still affected each other's lives somehow. And it's truly a great show.
My dad loved Seinfeld forever. And I mean, I remember they had that giant, like in Times Square. They had, didn't they air the season finale or something?
Yeah. Yeah, and there was like this huge watch party in Times Square for it. Yeah,
man. I mean, I've never heard of another show doing that, so that tells you how.
No, I think it's
Seinfeld was
second in viewership to Dallas or MASH, whichever one is first. I think it's second or third in there.
This is Dallas.
That's Dallas. It ran just the right amount of time. This is something that Jerry Seinfeld and Larry David always talk about, is how they could have gone more seasons. Like, the money was there. NBC wanted to do it, but they felt like after 9 seasons, they were going out on top. They didn't want the show to grow stale, as we've seen with things like 2.5 Men, Big Bang Theory, How I Met Your Mother. Is you get to this point where you run out of things that are interesting or interesting way to do things. And they didn't want to get to that point. They still had a lot of material. They still had a lot of material in the bag, and they just said, nope, this is it. We're going to be done. And I don't blame them for it, because in season 9, things started getting really crazy, and Kramer was just out there on a lifeboat for it was a weird time for Kramer. That's for sure. But if so, you're not a Seinfeld head like I am, and anybody who's listened to this podcast knows how much I love Seinfeld. If you've ever listened to one of our Seinfeld episodes, you'll get that. But there are some episodes, you've seen some episodes, right?
Yes.
Any of the really crazy things that are going on, that's season 8 or 9. If it's just kind of crazy, it's probably earlier and not. But if there's when Kramer's shaving with butter and gets a sunburn and Newman wants to cook him, that's season 9. That's a season 9 thing, when it's just way out of the realm of possibility, but still funny.
They're just having antics to have antics.
Yeah. But and it's still super funny. It's just not
Seinfeld.
It's not grounded anymore in reality, if they don't want it to be.
Well, I mean, I think it's there's a lot to be said about a group of, the main cast, 4 people?
4, yeah.
4 incredibly talented people who are on a roll stepping away.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, the other three people didn't really have a say in it.
Yeah, so I'm guessing if
But
Jerry didn't want to do it.
I'm sure he would have like had a conversation with them. He wouldn't just be like, "Oh, you guys all want millions of dollars and I don't. Fuck you. We're just not going to do it." Like I'm sure they all talked about it, but
I could see Jerry Seinfeld. I heard is kind of a prick.
a little bit. But I think at that point, I don't think he would do that. So the question of is it satisfying or not? In my mind, I think it is, and that it. So if you don't know and you're listening to this, spoilers. Basically, the four of them end up in jail by the end of the episode. Jerry and George have sold their TV pilot to NBC. They're going to move to LA and start shooting, and they're going to have this life in LA as writers for essentially what is Seinfeld already. And, Kramer and Elaine will just fall off. So they take one last blowout trip together on a private plane, which crashes in a small town in Massachusetts, and they get arrested for not helping a fat guy who's getting robbed. And they have a trial for them, and all of these old people who they were terrible to come at, like people from throughout the seasons of the show come in to basically vouch for these are terrible people. They don't deserve to be free to roam the streets. And so they get thrown in jail for a year at the end of the season. And honestly, that's right. They are just awful people, and they've done terrible things. But because throughout 9 years it's been presented from their point of view in a funny way, you're just like, oh, okay, yeah, that's good and funny. You root for them through that. But then by turning it in the last episode and having all these other people come in and like explain how they're affected by these antics that went on for 9 years, it's like, oh shit, no, these are just terrible people. They should be locked up. So it's, yeah, to me, it's good. And it's a really hard thing. And I think this is an idea we'll come back to throughout this episode that you and I will. It's hard for a show to give viewers a satisfying ending and leave you without a bunch of lingering questions about where the characters' lives are going next. And is where they're going next actually more interesting than what just happened in the ending? So something like The Big Bang Theory, which we already talked about, what happens next with them, Leonard and Penny having a baby, or Sheldon now being a Nobel Prize winner, that's more interesting than seeing those things happen. But with Seinfeld, they put them in jail. Like, there's nothing that's interesting going to happen in jail, and they're going to be there for a year. They're going to lose their show. Like, they're not going to be able to go do their show, obviously. They'll just get out of prison and they'll go back to their terrible ways in New York. No growth, no hugging. That was, one of the mantras of Seinfeld was no growth, no hugging, no emotions. And the only way to end the show is in the same way. They go to jail and everybody goes back to living their miserable, terrible lives.
So it sounds like they stuck with the theme of the show, at least.
Oh, yeah.
There's something to be said about that.
I think people just didn't like it. I don't... For people who didn't like it, please hit us on Twitter. What is actually wrong with it? What don't you like about it? If you say it's a glorified clip show, that's not an argument to why it doesn't hold up, because the clips serve a purpose to show you how terrible these people are. If you have an actual reason why it's bad, why the plot of it was bad, and why they don't deserve to be in prison at the end of this show, please hit me on Twitter at APA something. I would love to debate this with you because you're wrong. What's your next show?
You won't be wrong about this show, and no one will debate it with you. This is a least satisfying ending for me, and that's that 70s show, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
I liked the very last scene where Eric comes back is good.
That was the only good part of that.
That was like the only redeeming thing.
But it was a super controversial ending for the mainstream because everyone expected Foreman to come back. But for like the whole episode,
and he's there for like 10 seconds,
if that, and then it ends. You have no idea
what
happens.
What was that dude's name that replaced him? Kyle or something?
No, it wasn't Kyle. It was I want to say it was like Larry. Fuck, what was his name?
I don't even know. I'm watching like season 2 right now, so I'm way too far away from Kyle or Larry or whatever the hell his name is.
It's fucking boring ass, white bread, long hair, hippie bitch, douchebag.
He had like 4 funny moments throughout that final season, but that's it.
If that, man. He was just not good. He did not replace Ashton Kutcher or Topher Grace. But I mean, overall, that show was good. Like, I loved that show, man. The first 5 or 6 seasons are so good. Especially like the first 3. are just
Yeah.
fantastic. They
Yeah, once
nail everything
Kelso's
on the
like
head.
trying to be a cop and things like that, like when he's first like in the police academy, it's really funny, but then like once he's a police officer, it's not anymore.
It's like once
And like he has a kid and like
once Hyde grows his beard, I feel like it's just like, yeah, and I'm done.
and he starts hooking up with Jackie. Yeah.
Yes, and when Fez changes, like there's a distinct season to season change with Fez where he goes
It was
from
after
like
he broke up with that crazy girl, he matured a lot.
yeah, he gets all like I don't know.
Fun fact: in season 2, Amy Adams makes an appearance
Does she?
as the slutty girl that Hyde hooks up with. Yep,
Huh.
the slutty popular girl.
Eh.
That's all. I just watched that one the other day, and
I have to go back and watch that. But yeah, I mean, the first couple seasons, there's so much chemistry, there's so much like love and fun going
Yeah, you
on
could
with
tell
all these
all
characters.
the characters were friends.
Absolutely,
Like,
they had a
all
great
the, all
time.
the actors were friends.
Something fucking happened. I mean, it has to do with Topher Grace.
Topher Grace left, yeah, and Topher Grace left, and Ashton Kutcher was half in, half out. He was trying to do movies and all that stuff, and I mean, great for both of them. They're making their money. Like Topher Grace was in Spider-Man 3. Ashton Kutcher was in a billion movies at that time. Like
All mediocre as shit, but he made a lot of money.
Ashton, I like it.
Butterfly
I like some
Effect.
Ashton Kutcher movies.
Butterfly Effect is good.
They're not movies that you would go out of your way to watch, but if they're on cable, you'll stop and be like, oh, this is pretty good.
Too bad no one has cable anymore.
Well, that's true.
But I just think once Eric left and like there was like 2 seasons without Eric, I want to say. No, there was only 1 season.
Yeah,
but
it was
that-
only one, but
that
Kelso
season-
was in and out for the last 2.
Yeah, and the last 2 are like by far the worst.
Yeah. And Hyde can't carry the show.
No, he's not funny.
Like, they tried.
He's not as
They
funny.
tried in the first season with Kelso gone, like they tried to make Hyde carry it a little more, and then Fez was in season 9. They're like, let's just make this all about Fez and Jackie. Like those are the people that
Fenton.
viewers want to see.
Which I could give a shit less about what their relationship, like it just felt so forced. So I mean, it definitely
was
ran
super forced.
too long. If they would have ended it at season
After
5,
7.
honestly, I would have been cool.
Well, how long did it go? It went 7.
I want
to
to say it went 8.
I think so.
8 full seasons, I want to say. But I mean,
so they could have ended at 5 or 6 and would have been good.
that show, I'd have to go to my mom's every year for 2 weeks, so for a month a year. I was at my mom's house. I spent pretty much the whole time watching that 70s show, and I have the first like 5 seasons on DVD, and
Nice.
boom,
It's all
just
on
stopped.
Netflix now.
I know, which really pisses me off because those were like $50 a piece.
Yes.
So yeah, it was too long. The ending was only satisfying that you got all the characters back,
Mm-hmm.
but it was a total kick to the nuts that you don't see Donna and Eric really get to interact much. It's just like,
Well, yeah, because I think it's set up as Eric just came back like for a week or something. Like he was going back to Africa after, whatever he was back for. I did like that they framed it as we're going into 1980. Like the 70s are over, so the show is over, so we're going into 1980.
Yeah.
I didn't like anything that happened in the episode, but that was kind of a cool framework for it.
That was, and I mean, I think that was their natural ending point, but if they would have just done it in season 5, the characters would have been younger, stuff like that, and I mean, by that point, it's like, come on, you're not in the 70s yet. It started in 1976.
They started in 76, I think, and they only did, like, each season was half a year, instead of, like, usually in a TV show, every season's a year, and you can tell because the license plate in the intro has the year that the show's taking place in on it. So, like, that always confused the hell out of me of, like, okay, they start in 76, but it's 8 seasons. How the hell does that happen? And then I realized, okay, each season is only half a year. And that makes more sense once you watch it that way.
Yeah. So,
because in college, I would just pick them up here and there. Like I would just watch them whenever they're on TBS or whatever. I didn't binge them in any way until a couple years ago when I watched it on Netflix. But I had seen most of the episodes except the ones with Kyle or Lenny, whatever the hell his name is. I probably should have looked it up while I was on the IMDb page.
Barry. Guy.
Barry.
His
Could
name
be
is
Barry.
Guy. That's it.
Fuckface, that's his name.
I like Guy. Anytime I meet a dude named Guy, I can't stop.
Plus, Red Foreman, like you can't top Red.
Red Foreman's for president 2020.
Randy Pearson.
Randy. We were so far.
Were we though? I mean, is there really that big of a difference between Larry and Randy?
No, I said Barry. I mean, that's pretty
Yeah.
close.
What did I say, Kyle? It looks like a Kyle. His other notable movies are Date Movie and Bruno. So, yeah. Missing out on a lot of Kyle there.
Fucking Bruno. All right, dude. Your turn.
Oh, is it my turn?
It is your turn.
Breaking Bad.
You bastard.
I mean, we can just talk about it here. And also check out Patreon. We just did an episode on Breaking Bad pilot.
I also chose Breaking Bad, so let's combine this.
Yeah, we're just going to do it. No controversy, right?
Fuck no. I think that went down immediately as like one of the top endings of all time.
Oh, absolutely. The only controversy I will say is it's not about the value of the episode, but there was a little debate about maybe Walt died at the beginning of the episode, like when he's in that car, can't find the key, and everything that else happens after that is just like a dream or his dying thoughts. Like, so there were some theories floating around that Walt died at several times throughout the final season and everything else was just a dream. So maybe that's the controversy. But other than that, like, everyone thought it was perfect.
Yeah. The only controversy I heard where a couple people were really pissed you didn't get to see what happens to Jesse. Like, once he gets away.
I mean, he drives away into Need for Speed, the movie.
That's true.
Like, that's literally what happened. I'm pretty sure as we were watching the finale, like, after it ended, the trailer for Need for Speed came on. And it was like, oh, shit, there goes Jesse.
Yeah, dang, man. He got
Not
a career
good movie,
quick.
Need for Speed.
I heard. It's not, I mean, it was a good game.
Great series of games. I was really hoping it was closer to Fast and Furious, and it just couldn't live up to the Fast and Furiousness of Fast and Furious.
No.
Sad.
I love Breaking Bad. Such a great show.
Oh, yeah, Breaking Bad. That's what we're talking
about. What an amazing show. And I mean, from the opening parts where Walt is just this meager little chemistry teacher to the end where he is just such a powerhouse. He's destroyed all his enemies. He's basically won. I mean, he still dies, but he won.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, he won. It's probably the best show ever. It's the best show I've ever seen. I haven't watched The Wire or The Sopranos to compare it to.
Yeah.
But any list that's out there, it's easily top 5.
Yeah, it's either like one or
top
two.
3. Yeah.
It's such a great show.
It's Wire, Sopranos, Breaking Bad are always, and then, Mad Men is usually somewhere in there as well, but not like those 3 are always the top, and then Mad Men's 4. But like you said, it was just the right amount of length. Vince Gilligan, when he created the show, he set out, he had a plan and he stuck to it. He always saw it as a 5-season show. Even leading up in season 3 and 4, they would do the after shows. And leading up to that, it was, no, it's going to be 5 seasons. We have a story. We know where we're going. So every decision they made was in service of, let's get to the end in 5 seasons. They stretched the final season into 2 parts. So you had like 12 episodes instead of 8 or 10, whatever it was.
I think it was 10 as their usual.
10 was their usual, and they stretched it to like 14 or 15 in the last season. But it didn't feel like Game of Thrones, where they're just running in circle, running in place, trying to make money or waiting for somebody else to give them something good to use.
Yeah.
It was Vince Gilligan knew where he was going. Every decision he made got you closer to that and paid off.
Oh, yeah.
He wanted to turn Mr. Chips into Scarface, and every decision between season 1, episode 1 and season 5, episode 15 was in service of that decision.
Well, I mean, every episode in that last season was a powerhouse on its own. Mm-hmm. Like, it was must-watch TV.
And in the early seasons, like the middle episodes, like episodes 3 through 7 were always just like, they felt very boring and drawn out a lot of times.
But they had very large connotations.
Oh, yeah. Everything that happened mattered. It was just like, it got a little bit sluggish in the middle of those seasons.
Yeah.
Like, you'd get to episode 5 and you're just like, oh, Jesus, get over with so I can see what happens next. Instead of like, oh, shit, something just happened. I need to see what happens next. But like, episodes 1 and 2, always fantastic. And then 8 through 10, always fantastic. And like, you have to kind of get through the middle to get the meat on the outside. It's like a reverse hamburger, pretty much.
Good analogy.
Yeah, I just made it up right now.
Calvin with the analogies.
Breaking Bad is a reverse. Every season of Breaking Bad is a reverse hamburger. Don't eat a reverse hamburger. That sounds gross. What's the bread in the middle of your burger?
Vince Gilligan.
I guess so. Was it satisfying?
Super duper satisfying.
We've discussed that. Yeah.
Hail to the yeah.
He goes out on top, like you said. He doesn't live, but he goes out on top. It's as good as you can expect for a chemistry teacher becoming a big time meth dealer and getting his family a happy ending.
Yeah,
he leaves money behind for his family in this trust that he made his ex science partner set up for them. Jesse gets free to go straight into Need for Speed. He kills a bunch of Nazis. Like you can't do anything better.
And tell me about that closing song. Perfect choice.
Yeah, absolutely.
My baby blue.
I really need to rewatch. Like, I'm glad we did the pilot projections on it because now I will probably just keep watching it because it's got me interested again. I haven't rewatched it since it finished, and I've been wanting to pretty much since it finished. So yeah,
such a great show.
Really good. Check out Breaking Bad.
Yeah, and check out our pilot projection on Breaking Bad.
Patreon.com/podcast about something. Do it.
Boom.
What do you got next? Because that was technically mine.
You
just fucking stole it. Dick.
So my last one was a least favorite, correct? So I'm going with a satisfying series finale, and that's Netflix's Daredevil.
Okay. Yep.
So
I'll agree with you.
I will say the ending was not controversial because no one saw it coming.
No.
I did not expect them to actually cancel it. Well, I don't know. It's tough to say, but for them to cancel the show, I thought was really...
I think it's controversial now because people want more of it, and we're not going to get more. Maybe we get something in a couple of years with Disney Plus, like they may try and bring things back.
That'd be so great.
I think I read somewhere that there are like non-compete clauses where basically they can't create the same exact show within a certain number of years or something like that.
Yeah, especially with Charlie Cox, who's a fantastic Matt Murdock / Daredevil.
Yeah, he was perfect.
That show was awesome. First season's so good. Third season,
second
perfect.
Season was kind of bland.
Second season kind of sucked.
It was another one of those reverse hamburgers.
Really. Yeah. And I'd say obviously it ran too short. I was super invested in Daredevil and that street level hero. Like I loved that. I thought it was great. And having Wilson Fisk played by Vince D'Onofrio, I think whatever. I can never say his last name.
It's got a weird apostrophe in there. It's a tough one.
So great, dude. Like
they
nailed it from the choreography, to the writing, to the villains. Just, it was such a great show. So the way they ended it with, Matt Murdock taking off his mask in front of Kingpin, like, look at me, you punk bitch, I own you. That was so great. That was just, I thought it was such a satisfying finale. If you look at it in that mindset, because he'd gotten back to his roots. He found out who he really was, and he won. He fucking beat Kingpin, and he has that dude by the nuts. And I thought that was great.
I would love to see Kingpin in a Spider-Man movie.
Yes, man.
Get Vincent D'Onofrio in there.
Seriously, that would be fantastic. I don't know how him and Tom Holland would work together. It'd be odd.
I think they'd be fine.
I really miss...
because he's actually bigger than Tom Holland. Like, he was...
Yeah.
He's not that much bigger than Charlie Cox. Like, he's thicker, but, like, not...
Taller.
The Kingpin is, like, this huge, imposing figure, and, like, you see it in, like, Into the Spider-Verse, where he's just this cartoonishly huge person. And, like, obviously you can't do that with real people, so it's harder, but, like, putting him next to Tom Holland, I think you would kind of get that a little bit more.
Yeah, and I mean, he could throw Tom Holland pretty far. Daredevil was the first show that I've seen that had choreography, like fight choreography.
Yeah, fight choreography.
Fucking half decent,
man.
It
felt like you were playing one of the Batman Arkham games, which, for everything that the Justice League pile of trash movies have done, the fighting with Batman, the hand-to-hand combat with Batman is the same way. Like
in the warehouse.
Yeah,
that was the only part of that I loved.
Yeah, and I think they took a lot of that from what they saw in Daredevil. They took a lot from the Arkham games, they said. So, like, they're learning how to choreograph this stuff better.
Thank God, man, because they're missing out on so much. And props to Charlie Cox for learning this shit, unlike Finn Jones, who played...
Well, I had a problem with season 1 of Jessica Jones, too, because it didn't feel like that. And it's nothing that Kristen Ritter did wrong, or the producers did wrong in making it, or the fight choreography. It's like there is no fight choreography because she's so strong.
Yeah, she just
Like she just throws this little girl punch and the dudes go flying, and it's like it's hard to be believable, but at the same time, like I get it. That's what her power is.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like it kind of took you out of that realism of Daredevil.
Yeah, and I mean,
like this is just a dude who can fucking brawl.
Yeah, this dude can box straight up. And it was really, really satisfying after going back and rewatching it after watching I can't even think of the name of the show. Iron Fist.
Oh yeah,
because
Iron Fist has some bad fight choreography.
Dude, he sucks.
With Finn Jones, whoever plays Connie Wing though, she does really good.
She's pretty solid, but I mean Finn Jones is poop stain, and he looks like a canned ham with like he has no muscle tone. He looks like just a wad of gum.
I'm an Iron Fist defender. I actually liked Iron Fist. Like I thought it was.
That was one of the few shows I saw, and I was like, yeah, they fucked up getting a white dude to play this guy.
Like all right, it's not a good show, but like it was enjoyable to watch. I didn't care about the plot or anything, but like I just liked his quirky his like optimism, like just this sunny side of everything kind of guy. Like I liked that. I thought he did good. Yeah. I thought he did good as Danny Rand, not so much in the fight scenes like you're saying though.
No, yeah, definitely not.
So my next one is Spider-Man the Animated Series.
Nice.
Yeah. Great ending. I don't think it was controversial at all. I was like 10 when it ended, so I don't fucking know if it was or not. But like I've never heard anyone say how terrible it was. Usually if people think things are bad, you hear about it. Great show. Best cartoon of the 90s, as we talked about a couple weeks ago on our 90s cartoons podcast. Check that out. The length of time it ran, it was probably just right. If they'd have made more, I would have been there for it. With animation, like you can just keep these stories going forever and ever. But like we said in our episode a couple weeks ago, this was a show that had like overarching plots throughout the seasons. Like each season would deal with a different overarching plot as he's beating up different villains every week. And I don't know how much longer they could have sustained that. But for me, the ending was the best part. They in the final season, they did a lot of stuff with like clones and alternate dimensions, and Madam Web was there. So they capped all of this off with Spider-Man. He gets sent into our dimension, and he meets like a Make-A-Wish girl, and also Stan Lee. And this was like if I remember correctly, it was an actual like Make-A-Wish wish that was granted. Of this girl got to see herself drawn into the show and maybe do the voice acting. I don't know if she did the voice acting or not, but like basically she was thrown into the show. She got to ride around web swinging with Spider-Man. And then after he finished with her, he went over to the Marvel offices, found Stan Lee, who's the one who draws him, and gave him a ride around town as voiced by Stan Lee as well. And that was just something like really cool to see Stan Lee and this Make-A-Wish girl get to zip around town with Spider-Man. Like Stan Lee, Spider-Man, he's been on record that Spider-Man's his favorite character he's ever created. And like, so it's really cool that he got to put himself into this show and do that with him.
Yeah, most definitely, man.
Yeah, it's always good to see Stan get to interact with his creations, and no better place than Spider-Man.
The animated series.
Exactly. It'd be cool if he could do it like in a real live action one, but I think that's a pipe dream.
Didn't he do it in the first Spider-Man?
No. He
didn't get to swing.
No, he was in it. I mean, he's been in all of the. I mean, he was even in the terrible Fantastic Four movies. So,
God, poor Stan Lee.
I think he was even in the really bad Hulk movie, which is worse than the Fantastic Four movies.
I had someone defend that to me the other day. They said it was great. No, the first Hulk with Eric Bana.
It's like 4 hours long.
Yeah, and he fights random dogs.
Yeah, Hulk dogs. Yeah. As long as it wasn't Fanforstic, I don't think anybody could defend that. Like I'll defend the first two with like Jessica Alba and Chris Evans, just because like this was before superhero movies were smarter. So it's like it's okay that they were just like kind of cheesy and like they kind of leaned into like these people's powers are crazy, so let's just make it fun. Like they're entertaining to watch for the most part. Like they're not deep in any way.
They're not. great movies. They're okay.
Rise of the Silver Surfer tries to get deep at points with Silver Surfer, but they probably should have tried that.
A little too much.
All right, what do you got next?
All right. Going back to least, and that is Prison Break.
Never saw it.
Okay.
And now I'm glad I didn't.
Be glad you didn't, because what the fuck? Okay, it ends basically. You think the ending is the main character, Michael Scofield, who's responsible for all these prison breaks, dies. And then they bring it back for like a TV movie type deal.
Yeah, I remember that.
Where he's alive, which was just the dumbest shit I ever fucking heard.
I like that actor as Captain Cold in the Flash series, though.
Oh, he's great in that show. I mean, the first couple seasons of Prison Break are so good.
That's what I heard. Like, I always liked the idea of Prison Break. Like, it sounded like a cool show. It was just, I was in college and, like, watching primetime television is not on your radar in college usually.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that was one of the few things I would do with my buddies where we'd all get together to watch Prison Break.
We would watch the OC and just drink the whole time, so I don't know what was going on in the OC, but...
That's what we'd do, is we'd kind of drink beer and watch Prison Break. But, I mean, that show really should have lasted 3 seasons, I think, is probably a good bet.
How many times can you break out of prison, really?
Seriously. It's like, seriously, dude?
That's the problem with a lot of these shows, like these network dramas that get picked up, is like, you have a great first season, and you've thought about what the first season is, what the premise is, and where it's going to end for that first season. But then what do you do after that?
Yeah, and if your first season doesn't have, like, repercussions, and you're fucked.
Like, Heroes was great. All these random people get superpowers. Okay, now what do they do with those superpowers? And they save the cheerleader, save the world. Now they have to have something bigger to fight against, and you didn't think that far ahead, so now you have, instead of, the creator of Heroes being able to, he worked on Heroes probably for his whole life, creating this idea of, and then you go into season 2, and now you've got 9 months to figure out what's going to happen over a full season, and you can't do that.
Yeah, that was a tough hand. So yeah, I mean,
Prison Break.
with Prison Break,
satisfying.
Not at all. Very disappointing.
Sorry, Prison Breakers.
Suckers.
My last one is Arrested Development.
Is it completely over with that newest season?
I honestly don't know.
Man, they left the door open still?
Well, so there's when they started with season 4, it was supposed to be a 3-season arc. It was supposed to be 4, 5, and 6. 5 was not very good, as you've seen and as you've heard, and they broke 5 into 2 parts. So I don't know if those 2 parts count as the 3-season arc, but it feels like they wrapped everything up. Like, Portia de Rossi's completely out on it. I don't really think Jason Bateman's in on it, or Michael Cera. Like, I don't think it's going to go anymore. I don't think it should. We talked about it a few weeks ago with Jay from the VCR Kids. It should probably just be where it is. But I'm talking about both finales, because we had one in season 3 and now we had another one in season 5, pretty much, because it ended twice. That I don't think it was controversial, because not a lot of people watched it, but the fans who did watch it didn't want it to end, but it had to. And then when the second ending came this last year, like it was another one of those where it just felt like nothing happened. Like, I would have been fine if whatever happened in season 5 never existed.
Yeah, that sucks, man. Because I really enjoyed that show, and I remember
so good.
Oh yeah, and I remember when I finally started watching it after not watching it forever, just putting it off, and I loved it, man. I fell in love with that show.
Yeah, I started watching it in 2009, which is like 4 years after it was over. And like, it's so densely packed with jokes, and it's hit after hit, call back, call forward, inside joke, like, and it gets better every time you rewatch it, because everything is self-referential. And then season 4 and 5 kind of lost that. They were only self-referential to themselves. They weren't like doing callbacks to things that happened in season 1 quite as much as the earlier seasons did. It felt like it was all, the earlier seasons feel like one thing and the later seasons feel like a different thing.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that has to do with the actors themselves. Like,
well, yeah,
a lot of them aged a bit.
Yeah, and they were barely checked in for the last 2 seasons. They were like, oh, money? Okay, sure.
Yeah, most definitely, because none of them really are super big megastars, except for maybe Jason Bateman.
Yeah.
Michael Cera's definitely not.
He was
But
on a path to be for a while.
yeah,
I mean,
I don't know what he did with that.
Superbad and Scott Pilgrim and Juno, like he was in a lot of good movies for a while, and then he kind of just fell off the face of the earth recently.
Underrated movie, I think, or hated on movie he's in. Year One. Love that movie. I think it's fucking hilarious.
The first time I watched it, like it wasn't funny, and then I caught it on cable and was just like, hey, there's nothing else on, I'll watch it. And I was laughing at it more the second time.
It's
And there were a lot.
definitely.
So that's what it was. I watched it before I had seen Arrested Development, and then watched it after I had seen Arrested Development. And David Cross's character in Year One makes Arrested Development jokes in Year One, and I'm like, okay, now it's got me.
Yeah.
So like anytime anyone makes an Arrested Development joke, I'm in on it.
You clever son of a gun.
It was both too short and too long. Like the first 3 seasons is not enough. They cut, the third season down to like 18 episodes also. And then at the same time, seasons 4 and 5 feel like they're not needed. If 4 and 5 existed at the same time as 1, 2, and 3, and it went that far and they were all part of this cohesive thing, then yeah, that would have been good. But because it's 2 different parts, and the first part is too short, but then it feels like when you get to the second part, like, okay, I don't want to watch this anymore because it's not what I fell in love with. So somehow this show both ran too short and too long.
Damn you, Arrested Development.
But I think that's the way they would want it.
That makes sense for the Bluth family.
Yeah, those damn Bluths. To me, and I'm talking about the ending of season 3, despite it ending and not wanting to end, however, I knew it was over by that time because, again, I started watching in 2009, so it was already over. So, like, the ending in and of itself is satisfying. Like, everybody kind of gets what they deserve. Lucille gets arrested. George Michael and George Sr. are, driving off into the sunset on their boat. They're not going to turn around for the family. Like, he's finally going to Phoenix. An Young set everybody up the whole time. He was the mole the whole time. Great, An Young. Loved An Young. It just felt like everybody was where they should have been at the end of that, like at the end of the series. Like that's where this mess of people, they
belonged.
Yeah, they all belonged where they were. Michael and George Michael deserved to get away, and Lucille deserved to be in jail.
So mean.
And An Young gets to set them up because he was critically underrated.
An Young.
Hello.
Oh shit.
All right, what do you got for your final one before we get into the real final one?
That was the final.
Oh, that was the final. Well, no, this is the final. Let's talk about Game of Thrones. Just ended.
Yes.
Game of Thrones. We covered this a lot. Check our bonus series on Award It To Me. But we'll get it out in the air here.
Okay. I would say the ending is pretty controversial.
Yeah, the fandom...
Just a tiny bit.
The fandom feels divided like exactly 50-50, which is really hard to do.
Fuck, I haven't even heard a single person be like, "Yo, it was a great ending. I loved it."
I think, but I won't say that anyone thinks it's great, but I think people understand. Like there's a faction out there that's like, this makes sense, and this is as good as we're gonna get, which is kind of where I am. Like this is as good as they couldn't have done anything better. It wraps up the story they were trying to tell, even though it's not great in all parts of it.
I thought it was booty. I'll take it because it's an ending.
Yeah.
I will say I'll accept this ending because it's not George's ending, even though he had some influence, I guess.
I don't think he had influence. I think he told them very, very, very broad strokes of like things like Bran is on the Iron Throne, but that's all the information you're getting out of me. You've got to get him there.
Yeah,
like, I mean, that's how I feel like it was.
I don't think those guys are strong enough writers to do that. And I mean, with a bad ending, it really soured.
Alert.
Yeah, spoiler alert. If you didn't know,
we're talking about series finales, like they're spoilers.
Yeah, and with a bad ending, it really took so much mustard off the top of it for me.
Yeah,
especially with like a bad final season. I mean, it wasn't all bad. There was some cool stuff, but it was such a letdown in my opinion.
Well, I also felt like a lot of people wanted to shit on the show because that was the cool thing to do at the time. And I mean, we're 3 weeks removed now. I don't see it getting as much shit anymore because like the people have given up on doing that. But it felt like everyone had to have their take on why this is bad right when it came out, because that's what people wanted to see, because they thought everyone thought the same way, and we just want our confirmation bias. We want to read things that agree with us. And
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think that was a fair way to frame what this show did throughout its entire history, and to say, well, because the last season faltered at times, the whole thing is shit now.
No, I totally agree. You can't.
But a lot of people were taking that shot, and I'm just like, why are you doing that? Why are you diminishing everything else that happened?
I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you, dude. It definitely takes away from a lot of the other things they did.
It can.
I'm not going to shit on the absolutely stunningly brilliant things this show has done at times.
The show also did a ton of things that no other show could or will ever do again.
Absolutely.
This, to me, the question of, is it satisfying or not? The answer comes from the show itself, and it's ask me again in 10 years. I don't know that I can give a proper rating to this, just because there's so much surrounding it right now. There's so much negativity surrounding season 8 the whole time, and the finale in of itself. Like, it's hard not to be thinking of that while you're watching the finale and watching the last season, to have all this affect your perception of it. But
definitely,
in a couple years, if I watch it again and watch it as this whole thing, I might have a completely different opinion at that time. I might just go, maybe, okay, this is the story they're trying to tell me. I know where it's going to end. Let's enjoy it for what it is. But it was hard to do that in the moment because everything's swirling around it.
I think once I get George's ending, if I get George's ending, yeah, then I could go back and be like, okay, it's just the story that I can indulge myself, when I don't feel like reading, basically.
Right. Yeah. It's a good way to, like, especially the early seasons, it's a good way to catch up on what's going on in the books, and then maybe you crack out the last 2 books to get the real ending.
Yeah.
Like, you watch seasons 1 through 5, and then you're like, all right, let's dive into 6 and 7
the Winds of Winter.
Yeah.
God, I can't wait.
So what's your take on if it ran too long or too short, or just right?
Way too short.
To me, the answer is both and neither. It both ran too long and too short, and it was neither too long nor too short. Like, they could have finished this in 7 seasons if they wanted, if they didn't tread water for all of season 6 and half of season 5. If they were just like, okay, George isn't going to finish this, let's do it now, they could have done it in a way that wasn't rushed. Because most of season 6 is treading water, most of season 7 is treading water as well. So they could have started moving the pieces to the end earlier and gotten it done faster. And then it's also too short because they decided to tread water for 2 years and they truncated season 8. Like, it could have been 2 more seasons, and you move all those pieces also. So, like, it's weird. It's in this, but it doesn't feel just right. Whatever it is, it doesn't feel like it's the right amount of time.
It's in that weird, like, purgatory.
Mm-hmm.
Like, which is unfortunate. Like Lost.
May or may not have been purgatory. I don't know.
Yeah,
I never watched Lost.
Or may not have been.
I saw like 3 episodes of Lost.
I never watched a single minute of Lost.
This girl that I was into in freshman year liked it, so I watched like a couple episodes with her, but it didn't grab my interest.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Okay, so what upcoming series finales are you looking forward to? We're gonna do it.
We got some final thoughts. I guess we'll start with that one. The only one really that I have my eye on is Mr. Robot. We're going into season 4 here. It's supposed to be the final season. I'm really interested. Do you watch Mr. Robot?
I'm very interested in it.
It's really good. Wait till it ends. It'll be a good binge show. Like, when this ends, I'll have to go right back and watch the whole thing, because I think there's a lot of things that I missed early on that will be resolved towards the end. And this is one that, like, whenever a season comes out, I don't watch it week to week. Like, I let them pile up on the DVR, and then I'll binge them through once it's done, because it's so densely packed with things that are happening in subliminal messages and just like conversations that you really need to pay attention to, that if you watch it week to week, you'll forget what happened in episode 2 by the time you get to episode 3. So I like watching them back to back, and keeping it fresh as much as possible. But it's a really great show. It's about this hacker guy, 20-something year old, and he's trying to take down basically the Google of the world, but they're not even Google. They're bigger than Google. They control banks and credit cards and social media and search engines and everything. They're just an all-in-one conglomerate. They do everything. So he's trying to take them down by corrupting their credit card records, things like that. Basically, the plot of Fight Club in the first season, and then from there they have to deal with the fallout of that through hackering and all kinds of other stuff. So it's really interesting, and he's kind of an unreliable narrator throughout the whole thing. So it's really cool to see how his mind is slipping and trying to keep track of that. And I'm really excited to see where it finishes and then to do a full rewatch of it.
I'll have to check that out because I really like
good.
Rami Malek.
Yeah, he's really good too. But I would wait until it's over and just do the whole thing.
Speaking of Rami Malek, if you haven't checked out the show, the podcast Blackout, he is in that, and it's actually really good.
I'll check that out. Yeah. They need more help. Like they don't get enough love, so they need little guys like us helping them out. That's for sure.
Hey, they may find out about it and just be like, Rami Malek shows up to my house like, hey bro, here's $1 million, and I wouldn't give you any.
I wouldn't hold your breath for that.
I'm holding it right now.
All right, not a good idea. Are you looking forward to any upcoming series finales?
There's only one, just because my wife's kind of pushed me on it, and that's Supernatural.
Isn't that on like season 27?
53.
15. It's a long time.
This will be season 15.
I'm hoping Grey's finale finishes too. Like I feel like that's been on season 12 for like 8 years.
What's that?
I said I really feel like Grey's finale or Grey's Anatomy needs to finish also. That I just feel like that's going. It's been on forever.
That show hasn't been popular for like 8 years.
My wife watches it. That's the only way I know it's still on. Like I thought the series finale was like 10 years ago, and it's still chugging along.
Yeah, I mean, Supernatural probably could have ended 7 to 8 times. But I think it's a good show, man. Honestly, it'll be kind of cool to see how they'll end it and how they'll tie everything up and put it all to bed.
Awesome. Another one, a late entry here, The Good Place. It's going to end after 4 seasons. They're kind of taking the Vince Gilligan route and saying, we had somewhere we want to be. We'll be there at the end of season 4. We're going out on a high note. I just started recently watching The Good Place, and I made it through the first 2 seasons, and for some reason all of season 3 isn't on demand. It's not on Netflix yet, so I haven't been able to catch up on season 3, but I'm excited to. Really great show. Ted Danson's fantastic. Kristen Bell's fantastic. I love that show, so that'll be a good final season, I think.
Yeah, me too. My wife loves that show, and I've watched a couple episodes, and it's not something where I'm like, I love this show, but I enjoy it. So
no,
I mean,
it's not as densely packed as like something like Parks and Rec or The Office or Arrested Development, but it's really funny, and like Ted Danson's just uber glee at everything. I love Ted Danson.
Yeah. But I mean, what the fork, man? What the fork?
That gets a little annoying.
Yeah.
They really, like, especially season 1, like, they really rely heavily on fork and fuck kind of sounding alike. And shirt and shit.
Yeah. But you can't cuss in hell.
Well, heaven, hell, maybe. I don't know. It's one or the other, but not both. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I admire the fact that they're ending that at a good time.
Good
I'm kind of curious to see how it'll end myself.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting one. What else we got?
You got
to do this.
Which show that you chose had the best run up to the finale?
So out of the ones we picked, which had the best run up? I mean, the answer is Breaking Bad, but I chose something different because we can't just pick Breaking Bad for everything. So I actually chose Arrested Development because like they kind of go off the walls crazy in their final season too because they know it's their final season. This is talking about season 3, not season 5.
Yeah.
The narrator starts breaking the fourth wall, just like literally asking people to send money or tell their friends to start watching. They throw in like these lame product placement advertising jokes that like they know are like super in your face, but are also really funny because they're playing off of it, but they're also getting money for it. And like they do the goofy like 3D thing, like put on your 3D glasses now, but the scene's not actually in 3D. So, and then they like throw something at the screen. It's really funny how they just like the narrator just stops giving a shit and is like, just please everyone watch the show. We need money.
Good choice.
Yeah.
Good
Love
choice.
Development. What did you have for best run up to the finale?
I chose Daredevil.
Oh, choice.
Mostly because I thought that last season was great. The setting up of Bullseye as the villain and Kingpin really coming back to the forefront.
Man, I did not see Bullseye coming. Like, I watched that whole season. I'm like, why is this dude here? He's throwing knives. Like, what the fuck is going on with him? And then I'm like, in like episode 8, I'm like, oh shit, that's Bullseye. Duh.
Yeah.
That's why he throws knives really well.
Yeah, I was really excited, and I thought they did Bullseye pretty well. Except for he's kind of a bitch when it comes to hand-to-hand combat, but he is fighting Daredevil.
That's kind of his point of him also. Weakness. He's a long-range guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he's no Colin Farrell, but he was pretty good.
As long as he didn't kill anybody with fucking paper clips,
yeah, you know
cool.
what? I'll ride for 2003 Daredevil with Ben Affleck. That's an enjoyable movie. I like it.
To each his own.
Yeah. Ben Affleck's not great in it, but I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean, I also like Batman and Robin and Batman Forever, and I like a lot of superhero movies just because they're superheroes. So, and actually, Michael Clark Duncan as Kingpin was a perfect spot on casting,
pretty awesome,
and he did a great job in that movie. And Colin Farrell did pretty good. He was a little over the top, but like, it's a comic book movie, like he's supposed to be.
It was a fucking Bullseye.
That was great. Jennifer Garner as Elektra was great too. Like, come on. The movie is not as bad as people make it out to be.
Dude, it's pretty shite. I mean, and Elektra is even more shit.
Well, yeah, Elektra. I've never even seen Elektra, but like I know to stay away from that one.
I fucked up and went and saw that in theaters and spent my hard-earned chore money on it.
That's a bad idea.
I was so mad.
I saw Daredevil in theaters. It's 2003. Yeah. You know, I was 16. What do you expect?
What do you expect?
All right, so what's the best finale and why?
I think we're all going to choose the same thing here. It's Breaking Bad.
Breaking Bad.
By far. Best finale I've ever fucking seen. Tied up the show so well.
It's definitely staying the test of time. Like, there's no doubt that 10 years down the road, you're going to watch this and still go, yeah, this is fucking great.
Oh, so good. And I mean, I love the fact that it gives us a solid ending for Walt. And an ambiguous one for Jesse.
Right. Like, yeah, he could go and just be kidnapped by another meth dealing crew. There could be more Nazis out there. Who knows?
I mean, he could just go into one of his funks and smoke himself to death.
Yeah, that's true, too. He's definitely destined for an overdose soon, I think.
That's good. So it's like, who knows? He could do... I mean, he doesn't have any money. He doesn't have shit. He didn't take anything before he left.
Now, you don't want Nazi stuff.
I want money.
Well, that's true.
I would take all that money and then donate it all to like Jewish and black organizations, Jewish, gay, blacks, like all of them. And then buy a nice suit.
And it works so well because, and we talked about this, you know, Vince Gilligan had the specific story. He knew where he wanted to go. And so he made every decision to get there. And then you look at something like Game of Thrones where like they knew the ending, but they didn't know the path they wanted to take to get there.
Mm-hmm.
So like it falls apart in those moments trying to get there. But at the same time, I think Game of Thrones, like as we get further away from it, I said, ask me in 10 years, I think it'll be okay once we get there and we're taken out of this moment where everybody wants to hate it. And we're just like, you know what? This show is fucking cool. And it does a lot. Like these dragons are awesome. The battles are awesome. Like it does things that no other show can do, and by the time we're watching it again, has been able to do since. Like it's still going to be that, and then you just kind of slog through the last 2 seasons, and you're like, okay, I enjoyed my time with that.
That's probably the way it's gotta be with that show, and I think it'll be easier once
your expectations will be managed.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I had such soaring expectations.
Yeah, you're not going to go into it thinking, oh, this is going to be the best thing ever. You're going to remember it as this was a terrible, terrible finale and final season. And it will probably exceed those expectations because it's probably better than we are actually looking at it in the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it had a lot of faults, but it's still good.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Oh, we didn't do Twitter. Shit. A lot of feedback on Twitter today. We got
tons of feedback. We love you guys so much for that. It was so awesome.
Thank you for participating. We had a poll. What is the least satisfying series finale? We'll do, for our Saturday poll, we'll do what is the best satisfying series finale. Of course, this will be posted after that, so it doesn't really matter. But you'll have seen it by then. The choices were Game of Thrones, Seinfeld, Lost, and other. Lost won, but with 34%. Game of Thrones had 31%, Seinfeld 17%, and other 18%. So the Thunk Tankers at Thunk Tankers, great podcast. Check them out. They voted for Firefly. And I think that's more because people expected more out of it, and it just ended after one season. I never watched Firefly, or never went back to watch it. Like, I'm not going to get into a show that I know ended prematurely. Not going to happen. Sorry. One Star Bizarre kind of goes along the same lines. Any show that got canceled before they could resolve the storyline, so it ended on a massive cliffhanger. Like, that's the Firefly problem.
Yeah, tons.
Colby Mack said, call me a prisoner of the moment, so I'm guessing he voted for Game of Thrones with a bunch of emojis. Colby Mack loves those emojis.
Colby Mack.
Shout out Colby. Good dude. Check his podcast out. Great movie reviews. Very short, too. Short and to the point, Colby Mack. I like that.
Yeah.
Real Horror Show podcast gives a vote for Lost. Is just iconic because the writers so clearly had no idea how to actually end the show. He wants to revisit it. Guess not. The Arguably Correct podcast say they actually answered the same question in their latest episode. So go check them out and see if they had a different take on this. I will be. Barrenland Studios just wrote Gantz. I don't know what that means.
Don't know what that is.
I don't know what that means. We're gonna need more context from you, please. Drunk the Pod votes for How I Met Your Mother, and Dexter. Dexter got a lot of votes on this, which I remember that had a bad backlash too.
Super bad ending.
I didn't watch it. I tried to get into it because a lot of people when it first started were saying how good it was, and like it just didn't grab me. I didn't care, which apparently was the right choice because it had a terrible ending.
Bad.
Pitney and Amelia's Bitchin' Boutique. Another vote for Dexter and Night Court because we didn't get an ending for Night Court, and that was a shame. So yeah, we
don't know what that is.
I think it was like in the 80s. I don't know. I'm not old enough for Night Court. You're definitely not old enough for Night Court. Liam Howlett gives a vote for Punisher, and again, that's another one. Like, I just don't think we got an ending.
No, and that's why I responded, "Yo."
Yeah.
So
fair point. I think these characters are going to come back into our lives at some point with Disney Plus, but we'll see. The Bingeables podcast gives another one for How I Met Your Mother. Again, another just iconic, terribly bad ending. And I'm going to defend How I Met Your Mother for a second here. Just because it got voted a lot. I don't agree with the whole final season. The final season, it all taking place in one day around the wedding, is terrible. Like, it's just boring and treading water. But where Ted ends up with Robin, like, his wife's died, he's moved on, like, this is actually the time Ted should be with Robin. The problem with Ted and Robin's relationship was always that she didn't want kids, he did. They couldn't have a family together, and not one of them resent the other for the whole time. Robin wanted to live her life and travel and do all these things. By the time they're getting back together, let's call them 50 years old. She's done all that. She's had her career. She's lived her life. You know, she's traveled. She's done everything. He's had his kids. His kids are mostly grown. They look like older side teenagers. You know, he's been married. He's had a family life. He's gotten everything he's wanted. She's gotten everything she's wanted. They actually belong together at this moment. They always had love for each other and were in love with each other. They just didn't want the same things out of that love. And now they can actually indulge in that love in the way that they both deserve. So, you know what? I'm giving credit to How I Met Your Mother for the last 3 minutes of their finale, but nothing that happens in season 9 prior to that.
Very well said, sir.
I was thinking about that earlier as several people voted for How I Met Your Mother.
I can see you just like...
Yeah. VCR Kids puts in a vote for Arrested Development, which we already went into great detail on Arrested Development and how it was good and bad, and he's kind of on the same page. Yeah. The Music Crush Monday podcast. Hey, you leave Seinfeld out of this. Just hear me out here, Music Crush Monday. I defended Seinfeld, but yeah. It's historically not well liked, so it went in the poll. Zoe at Hernalicious gives another vote for Dexter. A lot of votes for Dexter. The Film Grouch gives us Lost. Nothing will ever top that garbage. And, you know, you had a good response in that. I think we probably topped it with some of this other stuff.
I think so, too.
Yeah. Matt Starman Morrison is going old school and obscure and saying Duckman. Again, no idea what that is.
No idea what the fuck that is.
Brad Cooper says Saint Elsewhere. Chris Chris 10966224. That sounds like a bot to me. Chris, I don't think you're a real person. He says he loves Seinfeld, but the ending was so bad they had to redo it on Curb Your Enthusiasm. I don't agree with that statement. They did do kind of a reunion on Curb, and they did kind of a reunion on Comedians Cars Getting Coffee. Neither of those things was supposed to stand in for the finale. The finale still existed. MC Myers at Film Objective says Battlestar Galactica, which I never watched that. I just know Bears, Beats, and Battlestar Galactica. That's all that matters. The Gen 707 votes for Dexter's and The Sopranos. The Sopranos is another one that I've heard. Like, a lot of people hated it in the moment. But
I remember my dad threw shit at the TV.
Yeah, they didn't like that. That was the iconic just cut to black, as, you know, maybe somebody walks in to kill Tony, maybe not. We don't know what happens. But I've heard other people talking about it, and that, like, if you go back and rewatch it now expecting that to come, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, yeah, this wasn't that bad after all. It just like shocked you so much in the moment, and you wanted an answer that you didn't get. And I think, like we've talked about Game of Thrones, I think that's going to kind of stand up the same. Just the Tipsters, another vote for Dexter. Stephanie, second H. Steph, another vote for Dexter. Cinema Savage, saying Elsewhere had a terrible ending. Never seen it. And Susan McLean gives another vote for Dexter. And then we got one last one that's blocked for potentially offensive material, which this is not offensive, so it's not offensive to me. It might be to you. Trent Monk says Roseanne with the last season was fictional and Dead's 2 also fuck you, which I think Twitter thought he was saying fuck you to us, but no, he was saying fuck you to the viewers of Roseanne that stuck with it for 10 years, and they didn't give them any credit. Which, did you ever watch Roseanne?
No, my wife did. She loved it.
My wife, same thing. Like, Roseanne was one of her favorite shows growing up, and we, at one point, before we had kids and maybe my first daughter was born, like, we watched all 10 seasons. Like, it's fine. There are a lot of funny parts, but the finale is kind of dumb, and they do this whole thing where they win the lottery in the final season, and that's kind of, the finale had to backtrack all that because they're like, no, these people can't have won the lottery. They don't deserve that.
Yeah, I kind of got that impression when my wife was telling me about it. Yeah. When the new seasons were starting to come out, and just, you know, I was gonna probably watch them with her just because of something to do with my wife. And
it's a bad choice.
Yeah, I did not, in fact, end up doing that.
No, we watched the first episode when it came back, and then, like, apparently she's a racist, and we didn't watch any of the others, and we won't be watching the Connors probably either. So.
Yeah, I'm not interested in
no.
all her hot garbage.
No, not me neither. So thank you to everyone on Twitter. Again, there's polls up all the time. There's all kinds of interaction. Please hit us on Twitter at APA something and at alone_podcast. We're all over there. Love talking to people about things. Because obviously we don't have enough time to talk about what we want here. We need more time to talk about it.
No, we just like talking to you guys.
Yeah, sure. That's it. Thank you for listening. Please check out our Patreon, patreon.com/podcast about something. If you don't like the month-to-month donations of Patreon, there is a donate button on our website on the About page. Down at the bottom, it says donate. You can donate one time, whatever you want. We would love that too. All the music is provided by Those Cats for a podcast about something. Thank you guys for providing your music because you are great.
You guys stay sassy.
Stay close.